Well, good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Hope everyone's having a lovely day and that you've had a marvelous afternoon as well. We've got some pretty interesting things to go over today. First of all, we are going to be talking about the next installment of Operation In It Together, taking place tomorrow at 5:17 p.m. in whatever time zone you are in. Then we're going to be talking about the expansion of John Durham's investigation. That's right, it has grown. It wasn't enough that it was continuing under this current situation we find ourselves in. It has now expanded to include even more, and the people who he has picked to join the investigation you're really going to want to know about. Also, we've got some former subordinates of John Brennan's talking out about his unpatriotic conduct. We also have some information on Vernon Jones, the Democratic Georgia politician who came out in support of President Trump. He's actually stepping down to work full-time to get President Trump reelected in November. Then we're going to be talking about some of our politicians who like to tell you how to act, but when it comes down to their own behavior, they absolutely don't reciprocate their own words. And finally, great news out of Sweden. They never locked down, and now they have gotten to the point where basically the entire country is going to be immune from this sickness. Pretty incredible stuff. Makes you wonder what would have happened if they would have done the same thing here in America. All right, guys. Well, please, everyone, do sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsor. Panic is highly contagious, especially in situations when nothing is known and everything is in flux. Well, the world we live in today is in flux, and it's filled with a flood of information that's often as much gossip as fact. Now, that makes it hard to know what the situation really is, and it also makes it easy for people to panic and make bad decisions. The only way not to get caught up in that chaos is to have a plan allowing you to avoid dealing with empty store shelves, long lines, and in the worst case, desperate people. Use today to prepare. A great place to start is storing food in your home, and I'm prepared myself, and I even ordered more recently. Now, the experts at My Patriot Supply have told me that orders have now reached about 100 times the normal volume, and they're shipping on a first-come, first-served basis. With this unprecedented emergency, orders are being delayed, sometimes 8 weeks or more. I urge you to add your order to mine today, because the sooner you order, the sooner you can get your purchase. Take action so you're ready for what's coming and save $70 on a 2-week emergency food kit when you go to my special website, preparewithredpill78.com. Those that know what's coming are preparing today. Go to preparewithredpill78.com. Once again, that's preparewithredpill78.com. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around. First of all, today, I just wanted to show you this tweet from my friend Enoch on Twitter. Operation In It Together, the next phase is beginning tomorrow afternoon at 5:17 p.m. your local time. Whatever your local time is, 5:17 at your time, please make sure to post this meme right here along with the hashtag #InItTogether, and we're going to try to get it trending again on Twitter, this time by doing it at everyone's local time, 5:17. It's going to allow us to spread the analytics out over a much greater length of time, and hopefully we can try to break through the way that they do things on Twitter. Every time that we've done it, we really should have been shown up on trending, but obviously they are suppressing it. If we do it over a longer length of time, perhaps it will be more difficult for them to ignore it. All right, so if you want to get this meme, you can go to Twitter. If you search hashtag In It Together, then you can find somebody who has posted it so that you can grab it and then share it on your own account. And why not go ahead and share it on every other social media platform at the exact same time? Let's break the algorithm. All right, so as I've been reporting for quite some time, the investigation into the origins of the Spygate scandal by none other than U.S. Attorney John Durham, who is the U.S. Attorney for Connecticut. He has no affiliation with Washington, D.C., other than he works for the federal government. The operation and the investigation has been continuing throughout the midst of this crisis, but however, now he has expanded his investigative team despite everything else that's going on. Now, obviously, as this is an investigation into Spygate, it is an investigation into the Trump-Russia investigators. And despite this crippling situation which has gripped our country, John Durham and his team have not let up. Now, he is the top federal prosecutor for Connecticut, and what he's done is added several new team members to his investigative efforts in the recent weeks. He's got agents from the FBI, as well as the chief of the Violent Crimes and Narcotics Trafficking Section for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C. His name is Anthony Scarpelli. Now, Durham, who has been running the operation out of Connecticut and not D.C., actually drove to Washington a few weeks ago so that he could continue to get some information on the investigation, get it moving along, make sure that the CV-19 wasn't hampering any efforts. Now, I just want to point out that since he had come to Washington, D.C. from Connecticut a couple of weeks ago, that would line up with the timeline for John Solomon getting new information about this investigation itself. So hopefully we are going to see something popping up rather soon. But even if it isn't soon, this is great news here that someone, Anthony Scarpelli, who actually specializes in violent crimes and narcotics, is going to be added to the team. It makes one wonder, since this is an investigation into the investigators in the Spygate scandal, why would you need someone who specializes in violent crimes and narcotics? Well, I'll tell you my opinion. The reason being, the people who are involved in this scandal are also involved in these specific types of crimes. We're talking about a transnational criminal organization. This is not only people who are employed by the U.S. government, but we know that it extends far and wide. Think clowns in America and the way that they make their money through black projects. Think back to Nicaragua. Think back to the movement of people throughout the world. We know that this is how they make their money. And with Scarpelli getting involved, I think it's a really good sign that these people who are active in these types of crimes are going to be brought into this investigation and snared up along with all of the do-nothing dims and swamp creatures that we have in Washington, D.C. Now, Attorney General Bill Barr was quoted in an interview this week saying that the investigation into Crossfire Hurricane by Durham and everything associated with it is proceeding at full speed ahead, and the timing of a report or possible criminal charges, because really that's what U.S. attorneys do, is they bring charges, not reports, it's not going to be based on the 2020 election calendar. We discussed that yesterday. So hopefully what that means is that despite the election coming up, the DOJ, John Durham and his team are not going to allow the fact that it's coming in November to stop them from bringing any necessary indictments. Now, Scarpelli specifically has spent the last 2 years leading the office in charge of the fight against murder and the drug trade in Washington, D.C., and also spent a year as an assistant U.S. attorney to the U.S. Virgin Islands. He also spent 14 years as an assistant U.S. attorney in D.C. and 8 years as an assistant prosecutor for Middlesex County in New Jersey. Now, although we know precious little else about Durham's team, we do know that he selected a woman by the name of Sarah Carwan. She's been with the Connecticut Federal Office since 2007, and she served as the chief of the U.S. Attorney's Criminal Division back in January. Now, prior to this nationwide lockdown, Durham has been spending multiple days each week inside a sensitive compartmentalized information facility, or a SCIF, reviewing classified documents related to the federal government's handling of this Spygate scandal. Now, Durham is also taking a close look at the FBI's flawed FISA warrants and all of their tricks that they use to try to entrap Carter Page, President Trump, and everyone else in his orbit. It's certain that the information and topics that Durham is going to be looking over is related to intelligence and people like John Brennan. We know that he has specifically been focused on John Brennan. And now with the newly declassified footnotes from the Inspector General's report, we know that the FBI was well aware of the problems that Christopher Steele was bringing in terms of his information and where it came from. Now, all of the information we have up until this point, in my mind, points us in a very, very good direction. We know that Durham is bringing this investigation to encompass everyone that was involved. The larger he makes his investigative team, the more people he can snare, the more people that can be indicted, and the more court cases we can bring and bring justice back to the United States, and hopefully vindication to President Trump, his team, and anyone else that was caught up in it. Now, speaking of John Brennan, a former subordinate at the Clowns in America has blasted his old boss, calling him unpatriotic and characterizing his conduct as dereliction of duty. This man is Daniel Hoffman, and he is excoriating his former boss's behavior both during his tenure at the agency and after. Now, Daniel Hoffman was the former chief for the Clowns in America's Moscow station, and he laid into John Brennan recently during an interview with Just the News. He said, one of the things that bothers me the most is when someone kind of starts with their answer and then they try to twist the facts to fit it. I saw Brennan do that when I served under him at the Clowns in America. And I saw him do it when he was, a contributor at MSNBC, accusing the president of treason with nothing whatsoever to back it up. Now, the former station chief said that Brennan's behavior related to the Russia collusion narrative was not much different than what he witnessed during the time that he served under Brennan at the Clowns in America. He said there were policies he supported, whether it was the policy in Syria or Iran, and when you told him something that would force him to challenge his assumptions, his response was just to get mad at you and not really want to hear what you have to say. So only interested in fitting the worldview into his own narrative. Now, Hoffman called Brennan's public behavior since leaving the Clowns in America an extraordinary dereliction of duty, and he accused the former director of misleading the American people and members of Congress by publicly peddling an unsubstantiated narrative about President Trump's involvement with the Russian government. He said, if I had concerns about President Trump, then, I would go tell Bob Mueller about it, but you don't need to speak up publicly about stuff that isn't true on MSNBC. This is the kind of thing that we've come to expect here in America. Agents of the former administration going publicly to try to defame the president, using the court of public opinion to skew the narrative and stir people in the American public in a certain direction, make them believe one thing when something else is obviously true. He said, I think viewers would have assumed that because Brennan was director of the Clowns in America, he would know something that they don't, and they probably believed him. I don't even know why he's still given the opportunity to be on air after all of that. And finally, he says, I just find his behavior to be abysmal, unpatriotic in retirement. I think he's done a real disservice to the national dialogue on national security, but on Russia in particular. And if you're concerned about bipartisanship, he's just made that worse. Now, there is a full interview that you can listen to with Daniel Hoffman. I think that his comments regarding John Brennan are very telling. I would hope that many current and former agents in the Clowns in America understand the damage that Brennan has done to this country. And I'm sure that these are right here exactly the kinds of people that John Durham has been speaking to during his investigation of Brennan, his conduct, and the things he's said both publicly and privately. All right, next, a Democratic Georgia state lawmaker, Vernon Jones, has announced he will be stepping down. He announced this yesterday. He's not going to complete his current term. This is just a week after he got a lot of blowback from his political party for endorsing President Trump. He said he's leaving the plantation, which is an adequate way to put his move. He said, I'm sick and tired of me and my family being attacked and harassed by the Democrat Party for putting my country before the party. Turn the lights off. I have left the plantation. I intend not to complete my term effective April 22nd, 2020. However, I will remain woke and vigilant in educating and fighting for my people. Now, he also explained why he threw his support behind President Trump. He said, I endorsed the white guy that let blacks out of jail, and they endorsed the white guy who put blacks in jail. Now, Jones represents part of 2 counties outside of Atlanta. He said, Trump is the leader our country needed. And on Twitter, he said, the left hates me because they can't control me. This seems to be a typical problem for the left. Whenever they have someone in their ranks that steps outside the boundaries of the officially sanctioned speech, they come after them and they make them pay for it. Now, after the endorsement Jones left for President Trump, Georgia's Democratic Party chairman, Nikema Williams, said he does not stand for our values, and he also called him an embarrassment. You know what I think is an embarrassment? People in the Democratic Party who cannot honestly admit to themselves that despite President Trump's political affiliation, he is doing things in this country which are good for all Americans. This is not about party lines. This is not about left versus right, but it's about right versus wrong. And President Trump and his administration and the moves they are making here in America are right for this country. And the Dems and the left, the policies they represent and espouse are wrong for America. President Trump is the leader we need right now for this time, and we need to continue with him for the next 4 years. Hold up, America. Wait a minute. We have some late-breaking news. It appears that Representative Vernon Jones of Georgia will, in fact, not resign. He has made the announcement that based upon his intentions to resign and the outpouring of support that he received from people in his district and all across America, he will not allow the Dems to bully him into submission, and he will not resign. Let's go ahead and take a listen to Mr. Jones and his announcement.
Hello, America. I'm Representative Vernon Jones, a proud member of the Georgia House of Representatives. And recently I endorsed Donald J. Trump for his campaign re-election. And I hope you join me in those efforts. But little did I know that I would receive such barrage of attacks and name-calling by the far left in the Democratic Party. On yesterday I had announced that I would not be completing my term. But then, when I started receiving the overwhelming amount of support and outcry from the people that I represent in House District 91 in DeKalb and Rockdale counties, my fellow Georgians and fellow Americans from across this country in every walk of life, every age, every color, every party, that was emotional and that was motivational. And you know what, America? I thought about it. And I talked to my family, and I talked to my supporters. Because what you did for me, I'm going to remain on the battlefield. I'm going to complete my term. I'm going to continue to put my country before my party. And I'm going to do everything I can to help Donald J. Trump get reelected. Because he's the man for this job. He's the man for this office. And you know what, America? Together, we've already made a change. I got you and you got me. I got gaps, you got gaps. But together, America, we have no gaps. I love you. Let's continue to have dialogue and continue to make America great again. Peace out, America.
What an incredible message. I am so proud of Vernon Jones. I am so proud of the actions he's taking. I am proud of his support for our president, President Donald J. Trump. It is not about party. It's about what's right for America. Well, the other day we had Chuck Schumer wearing a mask below his nose, we had Adam Schiff wearing one under his chin, and now Nancy Pelosi is wiping her dripping nose with her bare hand and then touching the House floor podium, which is used by other lawmakers. This is ground zero for spreading sickness. Nancy on Thursday wiped her dripping nose with her bare hand and then took that same hand and wiped it all over the House floor lectern used by other members of Congress. And her mask was pulled down around her chin and left to hang around her neck. This is obviously totally against CDC guidelines, and the 80-year-old Pelosi is definitely in the at-risk category, as are many other elderly members of Congress. Not to mention, it's just gross. Nancy Antoinette has held Americans hostage for weeks, refusing to vote on additional stimulus packages while she gets to sit inside her comfy San Francisco home eating gourmet ice cream out of a $24,000 or $25,000 commercial refrigerator. Now she's wiping her germs all over the place, and who knows what she's spreading. Pelosi and the other lawmakers have the nerve to lecture Americans about social distancing and guidelines amid the CV-19 situation we find ourselves in, but they can't even follow basic directions. Typical rules for Democrats, rules for thee, but not for me. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Piece of legislation. So we come to the floor, very important piece of legislation. So we come to the floor with such heartache, with such sorrow about those who have lost their lives and their loved ones, those who are suffering from the virus assault now, and for those who are in doubt about their economic situation.
I find it funny that she is on the floor lecturing other members of Congress about the economic situation here in America, when it's arguable that her and her cronies in Washington, D.C. have orchestrated this situation we find ourselves in. Many Americans are hurting right now. Many Americans are in desperate need of the types of actions that Nancy Pelosi and her cronies in Washington, D.C. have the ability to vote on. However, she has been bragging about the fact that that she has refused to bring things to the floor. She is bragging about the fact that while she gets to sit in her cushy San Francisco pad, eating all the gourmet ice cream she wants, Americans are finding themselves in line at the soup kitchens and food banks. Please, Nancy Pelosi, do your job right now. Help America and bring us out of this ridiculous imposed exile. And finally, a story about what could have been here in America. Now, Sweden was one of a handful of countries that resisted the economic lockdown that the vast majority of the Western world participated in. Now, Stockholm is expected to reach herd immunity in a matter of weeks. Now, Sweden has about 10 million people, and there are 2,021 reported CV-19 related deaths. New York, with a state of 19.85 million, has a reported 20,354 CV-19 deaths. Now, New York State shut down their businesses and they issued a lockdown in March, but Sweden left its economy open. And Mayor de Blasio says that New York might not reopen until July or August. Sweden's chief epidemiologist announced this week that their strategy appears to be working and that herd immunity could be reached in the capital of Stockholm in a matter of weeks. While Sweden's neighbors closed their borders, bars, schools, and businesses, Sweden has remained open, going against the grain and keeping public life as unrestricted as possible. The whole goal the entire time was to allow some exposure so that people could gain a natural immunity to it, which is quite honestly the smartest thing they could have done. There will be no need for a poke or any other type of medicine. If people do end up getting sick, then we have HCQ, and there are several other different types of treatments that people have discovered to be effective since this whole thing began. Some people argued that Sweden was playing Russian roulette with their people, but in my opinion, the argument itself is completely squared away when you just take a look at the numbers. In Sweden, you have 1/10 of the same cases as you have in New York, and you have half the people. That is quite a stark reduction in terms of the number of people who've gotten sick. It looks to me like Sweden did the right thing by keeping their borders open and allowing people to move around, because now the citizens of their country have a natural immunity to this sickness. Meanwhile, in America, leaders like de Blasio and Cuomo are probably going to suggest that everybody get themselves a little poke at the doctor's office, and then that will do it. The tactics being used currently are the exact opposite of what you would logically want to do. I'm sure many people here are old enough to remember when our parents would tell us to go outside, play in the dirt. If somebody was sick, if somebody had the chicken pox, we would go and play with them, so then we would go ahead and pick it up, and then we'd never have to worry about it ever again. The same is true for all types of sickness. We have the ability as human beings to develop a natural immunity to sicknesses, and the way that they have characterized this is vastly overstated. Sweden has the right idea, and I want to commend them. I think that in the near future, Sweden will be used as a case study on how to deal with things like this in the future. Well, guys, I don't know about you, but in my mind, this is exciting news about the Durham investigation. The types of people that Durham has on his team, the specialties that they excel in, I think it points us in the right direction of where we're going to see these indictments fall. People like John Brennan, agents like the ones serving under him who did his bidding, and also agents at the FBI, they are looking at some serious consequences for the crimes they committed against President Trump and America. And also, one more time, thank you very much to Sweden for having a common sense approach to an age-old problem. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless. Hey guys, one more thing. It's Red Pill. I just want to say thank you once again to everybody that has helped to support the channel. If you'd like to get involved, you can go ahead and check the show notes in the pinned comment and the description. There's always good information in there. I've got a couple of backup channels. I ask that you go ahead and subscribe to them, because if anything does happen here, I will start publishing there. And if you want things like merchandise or anything else, there is a bunch of information that you can find right below this video. All right, guys, thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow.